another edition of In the Huddle. Thanks for joining us again. We got Jason Nunemacher of the Disruptor Group, who is owner and operator well, not operator, you're not in the day to day, but owner of a tree care company and a coaching group for the sum of $20 million annual revenue. So you know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. We got Rob Kane, who is the owner of Automation Invasion, who can just completely revolutionize your business. And me, Chris Volpe, I worked for Service Autopilot for 10 years. We're here chatting about employees this week. Um, Quick story, we did we were doing a webinar and we said, hey, just put in your pain points of your business, anything. Could be revenue, not enough time, and overwhelmingly this word appeared as employees. And then it went employees. And every time someone put the same word in, the word got bigger and bigger. And at the end, once we closed, I mean, like it was my hands are disappearing, but it was like the entire screen. It was employees. And then it was like, owner doesn't have enough time, not making enough money. But clearly, that is the number one pain point for so many businesses is either the current employees that you have, finding new employees, retaining employees. So today we're talking all about employees. So Jason, what you got?
Yeah, so basically just kind of to map out, what we're gonna be talking about in this uh today's episode is just how we think about what we're doing when it comes to employees and what's going on in our business, and just trying to maybe have a shift in our mindset about that. And then secondly, we're going to talk about the strategies that are important in trying to attract, hire, retain, employees. And then finally, we'll get into some of the tactics and mechanics of actually doing it. And one of the things that you reminded me of, Chris, as you were talking about the overwhelming problem that people have, and there's really a simple answer to solving the employee problem, and it's not what anybody. I don't hear people talk about this. It's not what you think it would be, but based on my experience over the last 25 years building and growing several home service businesses, the number one answer is grow your business, because there's not a time that we grew our business that we didn't figure it out and find people. And so the thing is not to put the brakes on. It's not to get tangled up in the problem. It's to push into that, right? And so, and I guess this is kind of where it starts for me with the mindset shift on, sometimes we get it backwards in our minds. And so just flipping that script and realizing, hey, I'm glad that I have a problem finding people, because that means that I have more sales coming in, right? In abundance of my current capacity. And so, which is the reason I need more people. So then I start asking myself, when I start thinking the right way, what I call the right way, is which problem would I rather have? Would I rather go back to the problem of, man, we're not finding enough leads and getting enough sales? Or do I want the new problem now of, hey, I got to find some way to produce that new work and sales? So to me, I don't think you ever solve every problem in your business. I don't think you ever have a business without problems. It's you start leveling up those problems, right? And you go from one problem, solving that, to getting a new set of problems that you want to solve that takes you to the next level. And so, and it just obviously, we kind of talked about this a little bit in our show prep of, it just feels harder, right? When you have these new problems, because you were working on a different problem before that you were getting traction on and starting to solve, and it got easier over time. And now you get faced with this new thing that this solution brought, right? So that's kind of where, I like to start, is just having that mind shift of knowing what's really going on in your business when you start feeling these problems, and today particularly talking about employees. And so, Rob, I know you've had some instances on dealing with this, whether working with us in our business, working in your own business, or even some of the people that you help. So maybe you can talk into some of that mindset shift.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things, and this is the reason why the best HR managers have a really good grasp on marketing, is that if just like with anything else in your business, if you're not putting a focus on the problem, building a process around that, ensuring that you are maintaining the activities that are required in order to bring in prospective employees, then like you can complain about the problem all day long, but again, it's like on the other side of your business, you need to grow your business, you need leads, you need customers, you need to make sure that you have something constantly moving in order to keep that business coming in. And so creating this framework around what that process looks like, pivoting if things aren't working, but at the end of the day, like those systems and processes that need to be put in place go hand in hand with the activities that are required in order to create some consistency and create like an adequate flow of prospective employee opportunity coming into the business. So I think if you think about the hiring process, the employee process, just like you do the sales process, we've got really great salespeople within this industry, and you wouldn't have grown your business as far without using those sales tactics. Shifting that mindset in terms of how we're viewing bringing in these prospective employees, I think is a critical part that oftentimes just gets looked over because it's just easy to put up a post on Indeed, or it's easy just to put up a hiring post or to talk in passing to your crews, letting them know that we need more people. But if you have like a consistent system and process in place in order to make sure that that's those activities are being managed day in day out during the off season, during the on season, you can start to create this influx and flow of potential prospects for hire within your specific area.
Yeah, and going back to, some of the ways that we think and what we're feeling at the time, I really think that if we don't get if we don't get our mind right about what's going on, and we don't, you think about, I relate sports and business a lot. They have a lot of similarities. And so you think of the greats, right? The greats, they never get too high on a win and they never get too low on a loss, right? And they talk about trusting the process, right? And they talk about the fundamentals. And I think we talked about this on our last call, or a different call. But just going back to the fundamentals, trusting what the activity levels of what you're doing to produce the outcome. And so I think of one of the first books I ever read was Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the things he talks about is the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. So the circle of concern are the things that those are things you're concerned about, but you have no control over. And then the circle of influence are the things that you can directly influence and impact. And so focusing your energy on the things that you can influence, the things you can control and impact, rather than worrying and stressing about the things that you can't. And so if you can really shift your mind into that type of thinking, like, I don't control the outcomes, I control the activities that will produce an outcome. And so what I want to do is just trust in those activities and that process to bring me the desired outcome. And so um, when I think about um, one of the things that we miss is not having realistic expectations. And so when we get in that space in our mind, we think that we're losing because we have some turnover during this process, right? Because we don't have a realistic expectation. However, what's funny is that you can look at every segment of your business and you really have the same things going on. And so if you think about um, finding leads, like, you don't stop marketing because you're not getting enough leads, right? You trust the process of marketing to get leads. Now, you might do some things that you can control to improve that, but you don't just stop, right? And you don't just get frustrated. We all want everything to be better. We don't stop meeting with customers because we're not getting sales, right? And we don't, although we can improve how we communicate, we don't necessarily abandon our process of sales when we know it's worked in the past, when we have a proven system. So we just trust that that's going to work. And when it doesn't, that's not a failure. Um, it just it's just an experience that we can learn from. So you can either fail or you can learn, right? So there's really no losing in anything. And so I think what we do, though, this is where I was getting at with realistic expectations. In those areas, we start looking at, hey, how many leads do we need um, based on our conversion rate, right, into appointments, and how many appointments do we need based on our sales conversion and our average ticket to hit the sales numbers that we need. And so a lot of times we don't do that, and we'll talk about more about this later, but we don't do that when it comes to people. And so we start feeling like when we hire somebody and they don't work out, that we're just failing, this is hard. No, it's just a numbers game and it's a process. And so the better we can get at analyzing that, tracking that, reverse engineering it, and then have realistic expectations and know, you know, we need to fire 23 people before we get the one that we need, then that just becomes, the expectation, and we don't have to get so bogged down in our mind about it. So,
One thing I wanted to add, just because I mean we're comparing a lot of these processes which are similar, right? Like when we talk about like sales, when we talk about like activities around like hiring, and one thing that really stood out with to me through Sandler sales training was this theory of your role versus identity, and so like as business owners, like we have to wear all of these hats, and in addition to that, some of us are parents, husbands, friends, a part of these extracurricular groups, right? So you've got all these roles, and if you're adding like hiring manager to that role or HR manager to that circle of roles, and you're doing really bad at that one thing, like it lowers your identity, right? So that's when you start to get bogged down. That's when you start to feel like deflated, right? And it's going to impact every aspect of your life, right? It's going to impact those other roles because it's bringing you down because you're failing at that one thing. And so one of the challenges that I have personally is my pool. Like I hate my pool. Like I'm the one that maintains it. It's so annoying. Like water in Arizona, like should not exist. And so you get into 120-degree weather and overnight the pool can go from crystal clear to green, right? And so if I'm the pool guy and I'm constantly having to deal with that in my backyard, like I'm going to show up to work the next day not feeling my best, right? So spending $100 on a pool guy a week to come out and clean my pool, that's now going to elevate me in my other roles and free me up to where that's completely out of my mindset and something that I don't have to worry about, and able to grow my business exponentially now because I'm not having to worry about my pool turning green. So just thought I'd add that in there, but to me
yeah, that's good.
that's such a huge point.
100%.
One, I love that. Like one, that was really interesting. And I've never heard that before. That's really interesting about like if like one of your identities, because yeah, we're all wearing multiple hats. So if you feel like you're failing at one, it's eventually going to drag you down to the other ones. That's really interesting. Secondly, whenever we repost this video, that's totally going to be the caption that I use, is that water shit in Arizona shouldn't exist. That's gonna be the caption for this video.
It's great. So a couple of things in talking about realistic expectations is understand too, like businesses have cycles. And so building a business from zero up to over $10 million, we definitely have a lot of cycles in that, right? And more money solves bigger problems. So the other thing is know where you're at, and when you have realistic expectations, like I'm probably not going to be able to find all of the A players. There's a lot of people out there talking about, you know, being able to attract and find these A players, and I think you can over time, and I think you can with a system. But if you feel if you're going to think that that is something that can be achieved at every level of your business, it's not realistic. And so you're going to have a lot of frustrations, and you're going to think, man, everybody's doing better than me. It's not true. And so sometimes you are going to use people that can do the function that you need, but they may not be the best fit. They may not be the perfect employee. They may show up late, right? There's some things that are, hey, like we're not going to accept that. But at some point, like you have to, I think sometimes we try to build a perfect company, and I don't think a perfect company exists. What you should be doing is always trying to improve what you currently have. And so I know, again, you talked about this in our show prep, Chris. Libby DeLucian, I think it's DeLucian, um,
Lucian, yeah.
from Moot Recruit, she talks a lot about hiring people, and her whole premise is not necessarily going out and finding A players. It's knowing that you have A, B, and C, and constantly trying to replace those C's with a B's and those B's with an A, or developing them into those A's. And so, but it's a process over time. It's not something every once in a while you just find that diamond in the rough, but it's not the norm. It's just like the get rich quick scheme. There's not a lot of Zuckerbergs out there, right? So so I just being realistic with yourself, and being understanding that, hey, the people that are successful, they didn't do it without problems. They didn't do it without having to um, go through some roller coasters of finding the right people, having the right people, and always having A players. It's not realistic. So, and understand, in some of the people that we're trying to find, a lot of our business is home service based. It's people going out to perform the work. That's most of the roles that we're trying to find, and that we struggle with. And understand, there's something called the 4 levels of value. The lowest level of value is implementation, where you're using your muscles over time. And so that's the type of people that we're finding, right? That we're looking for, and we're having a hard time. So just understand that you are going to have a or a high turnover in the lowest level of value situation like that. So again, I just want to make sure people have the right mindset, and then have the right expectations about where they're at. And then the last thing, and I'll try to go through this quick. It's gonna be hard to get all this in 30 minutes. Is just working on yourself, and going back to the circle of influence and trusting the process. There's a thing that Grant Cardone talks about, of A cubed. And so you just look at, when you're not getting the results that you want, one thing you can do, one thing you can control, is make sure that the 3 A's are in there. Attitude. How's your attitude? How's your action level? And then how's your approach? And so if any of those are off, then just check yourself and see where you can improve that. So if I have a great attitude and I'm taking a lot of action, then let me look at my approach. Let me try to split test something. If my approach is great and my attitude's great, but I'm not taking enough action, I'm not doing this, at the frequency it should be done at to get the result that I need, then that could be out, right? So you just look at those things, and then after that, like, just trust the process, and you let the chips fall where they may, and just constantly try to improve yourself. And again, don't get too high when it's great, don't get too low when it's bad. Just keep working, keep doing the things that work, and it's going to happen for you. But just never take your foot off the gas.
Do you have a particular process, like whenever, okay, so let's say, you're experiencing a lot of growth in your business, you need to do a good amount of hiring. Sometimes that can be a little overwhelming, especially if you're a business owner and, like you said, you're wearing a ton of hats. Do you have a process where it's easy to kind of help categorize the potential employees, your leads, so to speak? So you feel like you're hiring the best candidate out of a pool?
Yeah, so and that's where we'll go into strategy now. Is the first thing, um is, then this helps too with how the problem really is, right? Is doing the math. A lot of people just get overwhelmed with, I need all these people. Like, I hear business owners and business partners that I have talk about using words like a ton and all the time, and all these big words. And then when we really break it down, it's like, okay, it's not even happening as often as you think, right? Or it's not as. And so the first thing we do is jump to doing the math, right? And doing the exercise of, okay, how many people do we really need? And when we figure that out, and sometimes when we start looking at, okay, what is the extra revenue now that we're trying to produce, then you start saying, okay, how much can each person produce? And you start saying, okay, I only need 2 people. Okay, well, what's the population where you live? and you start looking like, how hard is it really to find two people? Um, and so when you start doing that, it just opens up something in your mind of your belief changes, your perspective changes on how big of a problem you're solving. And so that's the first step, is how many people do I need, right? And so you start with, what's the goal, what's the target, what are we after, what's our current capacity, and from that delta between those two, how much can each person produce, so I know what I need for that additional growth. The next thing after that is, a lot of people miss this. They think of hiring and attracting and finding employees as an HR function. It's not an HR function. It is a marketing and sales function. And so they use the wrong people that don't have the skill sets to properly bring in the people that they're trying to bring in. And so you should have an employee marketing process, and you should have an employee sales process, right? And so to me, that's the process that we go through in trying to find those people. And then, of course, we're talking about strategy. All that's baked into the marketing, and that's where we'll get into taxes. What does some of that look like? And in the sales process, what does some of that look like? Anything on the strategy, Rob, that you have that maybe I missed?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of, just making sure that you're getting the right person in that seat, and thinking about it from the aspect of marketing, right? Because I mean, if a lot of the business owners that we talk to are in the $1 million to $3 million range, like that's just where a lot of landscape business owners sit, right? And so I think that, like, if you're trying to scale up, you've really got to think about those numbers, think about what you're trying to do, think about what it's going to take in order to get you there, and ensuring that you have a staff is critical to that. And it takes your effort, right? It takes your time investment in order to get to that level. So I think that's, you know
Yeah.
basically just my biggest thought on that.
I would say, and one thing that I'm learning with the cleaning business, I go back to, you know, what you preach, Jason, and what Grant Cardone preaches, taking massive action. And I never thought about that with hiring. You know, I thought, because like I'm on the verge of kind of having to hire a whole brand new team and things like that. So I'm really digging into it. And so like I thought, okay, I can just put this posting out on Indeed, and that's enough. It's like, is that really massive action? And so I learned, you know, hit all of the different platforms: Indeed, ZipRecruiter, FlexJob, Craigslist, you know, go to where your people are at. And even more so, I didn't even realize this was out there until recently, but there's tons of Facebook groups for your local area where people are looking for jobs. So it'll, you know, I live in Denton County in Texas, and so there's Denton County jobs. And so what you need to do is, you know, depending on on who you're looking for, you're going into Facebook, and you're kind of almost like guerrilla marketing for your own for the positions that you need to fill. And you're posting it in English, and you're posting it in Spanish. Rob, I know you said one of your clients was like he has this really big Brazilian population, right? And so he needs to post it in Portuguese. Like, you got to go after like whatever is working for you. You got to go after that, and you got to do it with massive action. That was mind blowing.
Yeah, 100%. And going into like, okay, how do we bring that strategy to the ground level and start doing it? And I think the one of the things, again, if you're using somebody that's thinking about managing people, right, and all the stuff that typically we think about with HR, right, but they don't have the mindset to understand what this really is. And because the number one thing you're trying to do here is have a conversation with someone who's the right candidate and a fit for your company culture and the role you're trying to fill, right? And And then you have to know that, hey, what product am I selling? Right. And so what I'm selling is not even the position at this time. It's I'm selling an appointment to talk to me, right? To get interest. And so if you're not thinking like this, that's why marketing people are the best for this. Salespeople are the best for this, or people that can develop that skill. And so now once you understand that, then the principles of marketing and the principles of sales are what's going to get you the result that you want. And so what's the first thing you have to do in marketing is you have to get people's attention. In order to ever to get them to look at your thing and have a conversation on whether they should do business with you or not, is you have to have something compelling enough for them to stop listening or looking at whatever they're looking at and pay attention to you, right? And so what is that attention grabber? And so I think that's super important in understanding of how do we find the people that we're looking for. The next thing, like you just talked about, is the frequency. How often are you doing this, and how Grant talks about being omnipresent, and so try to get yourself out there as much as you can. And then another thing I think a lot of people miss is, do you have a way to capture, just like you do with customers, do you have a way to capture people's contact information that you can build that list or that pool of candidates? The most valuable thing you have in your business is your client list, right? Because that list you can monetize on. Well, I think the second most valuable thing is your people list, because you can't monetize that client list without the producers, right? And so where are you creating a candidate pool that you can then mine, just like you can mine your customer for upsells and new business, or converting somebody that canceled or was unsold into a sold client again. So I think having a way that you capture that information, then and then having a follow-up system, just like you do with sales. Like these same principles are what work, right? These are going to give you the best outcomes that you can have. What's that follow-up system, both for people that didn't come on or didn't come for an interview or you didn't hire, but then also, and we won't get in this today, but a lot of people fail on the follow-up of sold customers, or we're talking about employees today, people that did hire on. What does that look like so you can keep them engaged, keep them enthusiastic about working with you, um, and just having that process. So these same principles work in this area. And then in the sales realm, you once you're having that conversation, right, you get them to an appointment, um, like take interest in them. Like you were in a sales call right now, right? And so because you are looking for people, what's your biggest problem? Number one problem people are saying is people, right? I can't find good people. So when you find a good person, like you are selling them you, they're not selling themselves to you, right? And so I think we get that backwards along a lot of times. And so because I need them, they can find a job anywhere, but I need somebody that can consistently produce, that will show up and take care of my clients and help me grow and build my business. So let me take interest in them. What are they looking for? What are they trying to move away from? And what are they trying to move toward? And so I want to find that information out in that conversation. And then I'm going to present my offer with what solves that for them, right? I want to show them that what we do, what we offer, what we're showing them, if they're a part of our team, solves that thing that they told me they're trying to move away from and move toward, right? And I want to be able to show them through the vision of our company and where we're going and the roadmap of where they can go if they choose to, why we're different, right? And that they're not just trading their time for a check on Friday like everybody else, right? And so you want to move candidates from comparing to differentiating, right? So you want them to stop comparing you to their other opportunities and differentiate you from the other opportunities that they have or are looking at. And so to me, these are the principles I think a lot of people miss when they're looking at hiring people, and they think that they have the upper hand. I do not think I have the upper hand on hiring people. I think the people I'm hiring have the upper hand on me. And I think if I don't think that way, I'm going to miss a lot of opportunities, and I'm going to get stagnant in growing my company. And I don't care what the market says people are worth. I'm going to look at what are those people worth to me on having them or not having them. And I might pay them more than the market says I should pay them, because if I don't have them, it's costing me more. And so those are some of the tactics, that I go into in trying to do this. And then, of course, you got to systemize it, and this is where Rob's the best at it, and just taking all of these things and how do we systemize that? Because one thing again, Grant says that I've adopted is if you don't have always, you end up with nevers. And so the more you can bake things into your process and into your system, so we always do it, not randomly do it, not do it when we remember, but we always do it, you're going to have the best results. And so I'll let you speak to that, Rob.
Cool. Yeah, just two things really quick going into this. Number one, if you don't have service autopilot, or don't want employee contacts in your system, what I'm going to go through today can easily be built out in another automated system as well if you're using a job or go high level. But really, it's about the fundamental principles of ensuring that your prospective employees are passing this litmus test before they get to you, saving you a lot of time, and then also keeping you on track with your efforts in bringing in those prospective employees. So this automation was built in collaboration with Ready Business Systems, Justin Woodford at Ready Business Systems, and I built this for a lot bigger company than what I'm used to working with. And that's why I feel like this system works so well, because you can turn off sequences, turn them on as needed based off of how many interviews you want your prospect to go through before they get to you. So one key component of this automation is using some sort of a calendar integration, Calendly integration. If you haven't done this yet with sales guys for estimating, I know that there are some limitations with Service Autopilot specifically, but if your prospects of any kind can't book with you, you're basically falling behind the times. So this system integrates Calendly, gives the applicants the ability to book with a phone interview via Calendly. Once the phone interview is completed, and I'll show you what that looks like, they can continue to book their second and third and fourth interviews until finally they get to you, right? There's a lot of other items that are built into this one. This automation also works really well in tandem with our recruiting automation. And this essentially allows you to continue to nurture those prospective employees that may not have gotten to the interview or didn't accept their job offer. We're checking in with them via email and text and postcards, continuing to drive that amazing employee offer that we're putting out there, to see if at some point in time during the season they want to give your company a shot, right? And then we reward them based off of them sticking with it and doing a good job. These automations also come with applicant forms. So you've got your interview forms as well, where we've got questions that are pre-built. Again, this automation, you can download it directly from the marketplace if you want to. If you need help unpacking it, we're always here to help as well, especially if we want to integrate some of these sales type questions into these applicant interviews so that we're getting to know a little bit more about our prospect. We're driving what is important to them, and then working together to find a solution that's going to entice them to want to work for your company. So yeah, that's this one successfully implemented, works really well. We've got the other interview forms here, and then yeah, if you want to look through the marketplace, you can reach out to us to download that.
Yeah, and again, if you need any help with that, need to contact us. You can reach us at info@disruptorgroup.com, and we can jump on a call. And I think Chris, you're going to put a Calendly link to where they can book a call. If you can throw that in there as well, and we'd be happy to walk you through that, talk you through it a little bit more, or anything that we've talked about. One last thing I did want to talk about is predictive outcomes. And I know we're over time, but this is good. So is if you want to have predictive outcomes, again, I talked earlier about sales, like it's easy for us to engineer our sales, like how many leads we need, for how many appointments do we close into sales, and what's our average sale, and some of those things we figured out and we do. But what a lot of times we don't look at and track the numbers for our hiring process, right? And so again, if you don't have always, you end up with never. So, man, make this a part of tracking data. Data is going to help you. It's going to be the thing that allows you to know what is the activity that we talked about, taking massive action. What if you knew how much action you actually had to take? And so if you start tracking this of how many candidates do I get that turn into an appointment, and how many those appointments actually show, and of the ones that show, how many do we hire? Of the ones that we hire, how many stay long term? Or and you can judge that on 90 days, 6 months, 1 year, whatever. And you could track all that. And so if you track those numbers, the as you over time, as you get that data, you now can start looking at, hey, if I need 3 people, then I am going to have to go through hiring this many people. Maybe that's 37 people, right? To get 3 that stick. And then it's just, I don't have to be frustrated. I just know it's part of the process. And every once in a while, you might not have to go through 37, right? Or 36. Because you find people quicker than that. But this just gives you a predictive outcome and allows you to know that, hey, I can be okay with somebody turning over. I already know that that's just part of the game, the number game, until I find people. But if you're not tracking them, you're not going to be able to have that predictive outcome, and you're not going to have a little bit of peace of mind about what it really takes to find the people that are going to stick with you and actually be able to perform at a high level and be good people to work with. So that's the last thing I wanted to leave you with, but definitely reach out through the marketplace. If you don't have Service Autopilot, you want to do it outside of Service Autopilot, hit us up through the calendar link or info@disruptorgroup.com. I'll let you take us out, Chris.
So you reminded me, we talked about in a previous session that there are data-driven decisions, and then there are opinions and feelings. So definitely fall into the camp. So if you find yourself like either you're saying this or someone on your team is saying, well, I feel like I just can't find, or I feel like there's no good employees out there. Well, that's great, but feelings are fleeting. And so if you've got that data, like what Jason was saying, to really track that, then you're making a much better decision, and you're not making a decision on feelings, which is what you absolutely want to avoid. So with that, we'll wrap up this session of In the Huddle. Go make those plays now that our huddle is finally breaking. Um, we'll have another In the Huddle next week, and we'll be going over marketing, and we'll post all the information, Calendly links, things like that. And real fast, so Robert, so if they want to download that automation in the marketplace, do they need to reach out to you to get a code? Is there no code? How do they do that real fast?
If they click view and download, there's just a quick form to fill out. We'll get them the code and we're ready to rock and roll.
Perfect. Excellent. Reach out. We're here to help you, and we'll see you in the next In the Huddle.
See you, everybody.
Thanks,
y'all.
guys. Appreciate it.